I may have found a solution to my constant changes, that I always wanted to change things up. This video will be about planner peace, which I've seen many people say does it really exist, and perhaps not. But there may be a loophole. I have been watching a lot of Monique Smith, who posts videos several times a week about her planners and planning. And she changes books or covers and setups every month. And I know that I want to do this. When I journal in separate books, I like to have one book per month. So that, for example, let's make some room. Impossible, I know. This was March of this year. So not a lot of room for actual journaling in here, but it was exquisite to write in. Yeah, so that was March, and when March was done, I was done with this, and not only in a literal sense, but also figurative. I was sick of it and started a new book. And I want to start new planners every month as well. But not only that, I want to have new setups. And this is a problem because it means you have to migrate constantly and sort of be in two books almost all the time, because when you're changing, you have some things in the old book and some things in the new book. But I was watching Monique Smith and suddenly realized that, well, something happened in my head after watching her for a couple of months. So I'm thinking, okay, I will have one book or setup per month. So this will be August. It might be September as well. We'll see. But in October, at the latest, I will probably change. And the thing with Planner Peace and me is that there is no perfect solution. I want rings without the rings. I want rings, but it should be a book, a tome. And I want to be able to take things out and put them in, and it's just not possible. And I sometimes use strings, and I don't like, how they move around the inserts. But the change itself keeps me satisfied, I think. So I came up with my planner varieties. So there's the binder version, there's the Traveler's Notebook version, there's the Traveler's Notebook book version, and there's the tome version. So the easiest one to explain, I think, is the tome, because that was what I was going to do when I started this one. So here I have a half-made tome. It's made of two notebooks, so one is lined and one is blank, and I cut this down so it needs some love before it looks presentable, which it doesn't have to do. So the tome is just a thick book, but it needs something. I mean, this is like the planning section and this is the journaling section, but it needs the long-term planning, the someday maybe lists, and the permanent information. So what I can do is when this is finished, I have my Next Action book at the back, and it's attached with gaffer, so I can just peel this off, remove it, and either gaffer it to the new book or actually glue the section onto the back. So it becomes this thick thing. So that's one version. that I will allow myself to use. So if say that I'm in this book and then I feel like, no, I want a tome for August, I will make a tome, and I will just, you know, move the long-term stuff that would otherwise need to be migrated to the tome. Okay, number 2. The Traveler's Notebook book is, well, this is one of those where I have, it's like a Traveler's Notebook because there are strings in the middle where I can sort of hang inserts, but it's also a book because the end bits are notebooks. Yes, okay. So the way I've set up August is a Traveler's Notebook book. So planning section, some junk journaling stuff, insert, the Someday Maybe section, and more journaling and sketching pages at the back. Then I actually did buy a Traveler's Notebook because it was on sale. It was, they were going to discontinue it. It's Webster's Pages, and I wouldn't have bought it if it had been full price, you know. And it feels wasteful environmentally because it's new, you know, and well, let's not go into that. But I was thinking, since it's, you know, they're trying to get rid of it, okay, I can buy it at a lower price. I put some lace on top and this postcard, and put this sort of tassel instead of the boring thingy they've got. So in this one, I used a whole day to rewrite the, well, to begin with, I had all my Someday Maybe stuff here in the book section. Then I rewrote everything in this insert to fit my August planner. And now I rewrote it all again in narrow inserts, 2 of them, because it's only like 16 pages or something, or 32 pages. But I put these inserts in the pockets they've got at the front and the back. And, you know, I could actually put these in a Traveler's Notebook book as well. I could take this out, the big insert for Someday Maybe lists, and put these 2 narrow inserts, so they would be like, they would end here, which means there would be a lot of room for making borders in the junk journaling section. So that might be a good idea. But now I've got 2 versions, one A5 insert and 2 narrow ones. I've got my ruler there and post-it notes. And I used the strings in this one to hold a Moleskine, or however you say it, expanded. So it's 400 pages or something. So I've got the strings on the inside of the back cover and the front cover. And there are 2 more strings, so I printed some calendar pages and made an insert from that. Really not pretty. And I put my knee exercises and my back exercises in the back with this sort of cover. So if I feel like switching to a Traveler's Notebook setup, I already have my Someday Maybe lists ready to go in Traveler's Notebook version, you know, which means that when I use my current journal and put something in the Someday Maybe section here in the back, I need to remember to put those new entries in both this one and this one, in those Someday Maybe sections, when I switch to those books. It sounds so busy. Then final version, a binder. And let me tell you a little story. I was happily using a binder for years, set up according to GTD, before I stumbled on the bullet journal community, and that just blew everything to smithereens. And since then, I haven't had a planner piece. I had a planner piece, and then the bullet journal came and ruined that. Because I discovered my love of books, or rediscovered, I should say. Because I hate the rings. But I had an idea. I put these elastics at the front, and this is a placeholder notebook. This is where the Someday Maybe section from this book would go if I choose to use a binder for a month. So this one I will put on those elastics, because when you close a binder, when it's, you know, when you've used up all the space that the rings will allow, you know, and you can't put too much in, because it will just, you know, fly off the rings when you open it. So you still have space, and it's perfect. It's a perfect sort of hole for a notebook that you hang off these elastics. And at the back as well, I have put, well, right now I have half a Leuchtturm here for journaling, because I cut it off. Here's the other half. Because when I used the whole book, it just became too thick, so I didn't like it. So I've got the rest here for journaling. I have two elastics, a thin one and a thick one. Where was I? Oh yes, my idea was to put my weeklies in the back. So this is the same setup like the booklet thing I've got going in my normal planners. But I was thinking, I mean, the trouble with the rings for a right-handed person is when you write on the left side. And especially when you're at the beginning, because there's a lot more rings to be annoyed by. But if I put if I put project spreads, not spreads in a binder, but project pages at the beginning of the binder, and I have my weeklies at the back, then I can sort of, when I set up my week, I can take this out and write the things, because I don't add a lot of stuff during the week. But then I can write on the right-hand side, I have my brain dump there. So I think it might work actually to have the same setup, because I don't need to write a lot on the left side. And if I do, I have a lot of papers here, because it's in the back, to sort of fill up most of the rings so they're not super duper irritating. Perhaps I can even, you know, put something here to hold them up even more. And at the front, I'll have things where I don't need to write all the time. It's more like stuff as I said, project pages that I set up and then I just refer to them. I don't write on them a lot after I've set them up. Another thing I can do, if I do things that I don't want to keep, and this was my system back when I used a binder before the bullet journal catastrophe. I wrote on one, I actually used stencil, no, not stencils, like copy paper. When people made copies of things and they were printed on one side and the back was blank, I would, let's pretend that there's writing on this side. I would fold them, punch them, and put them in my binder and write on this side, and then take it out and, you know, put the blank side to the right again, because I wanted to write on the right hand side. So I used them like this, and then I threw them away because they were scrap paper. So I'm going to try something similar now. So the thing, like when I make notes at a meeting or something, I will just sort of scratch it out and then turn it over, and I've got a new notes page. Yes, so I guess that's it. I'm going to make like these dividers and stuff, because I've been watching people set up filofaxes and binders and traveler's notebooks, and they put in such pretty things, and I want to do that too. And I mean, I also like the variety that you can have in a binder, because you can put in like book pages. This is from a book about astronomy. This is just something I painted. In a book, you have to, I mean, if you add something, it adds to the bulk. But here, I can control that and take something else out. So I'm looking forward to that. Oh, look at this. Might be a good idea. So, all this to say that, okay, so this is my July book, and actually setting all these other books up gave me some peace already, because I was sort of longing to get into this book. I was sick of this one, and I was setting this one up, and I was, maybe I can sort of abandon this halfway through July. Can I do that? No, you know. And then when I'd set up these other books, that sort of went away, because I knew that, well, I will only use this one for a month, and then I will go into this one and into this one, and it sort of became too long to go into all these books. So I sort of felt like, no, I'm satisfied in this one. Plus, I put in a journaling insert from this one. So I'm going to, because I was sort of sick of this book being ugly. That was sort of the point. I was going to torture it to death during July, but I do want a pretty section in the book. So this is it. I'm going to journal with a gold pen on these pages, and then archive it in this. And I might fill more of these inserts, actually. We'll see. Yes, I guess my tip is, if you find yourself like me, wanting to change systems and setups. Not systems, I mean, I use the GTD system still. I have done for 10 years. But if you sort of vacillate between rings and books and strings and whatever, make duplicates so that you can jump from book to book, but it's sort of contained. You don't buy new covers and stuff. Well, maybe you do. I try to avoid that. I like to make my books instead. Like, well, all of these are bought in a way, but like this one, I've made. But I mean, then you sort of, the piece part of Planner Piece with this sort of a strategy, I guess, for the future is that I know that if I want to go into the strings, it's already set up. I have my Someday Maybe list, I have my exercise program and a book and everything. I can just dive in. You know, I don't have to find a way to migrate stuff or, you know, because there are duplicates. And I have 3 different versions of Someday Maybe sections now. So one is the 2 narrow inserts in the Traveler's Notebook. One is an A5 insert in this one. One is a whole separate book that I, gaffer or glue onto other books. And I could actually, I mean, because now I'm using the A5 insert and moving that from from this one to this one when I want to use the binder. But I could set up a section, like have my Someday Maybe lists on the actual rings if I wanted to. But now I'm so sick of rewriting all those lists that I'm done. Maybe in the future I like to practice my handwriting and I'll do it all over again on these. But the advantage of actually using the insert instead is that I save space on the rings where I can, use them for daily planning and note-taking and all those things. And I actually use the space, the sort of hole that that is created by the rings here. And finally, I've on the Planner Varieties page, just to feel safe in my new strategy, so I know what I'm doing, what the different versions are, I have described the tome, the A5 binder, the TN and the TN book, like what it is, what it consists of, where the Someday Maybe lists go and so on. And I've also put how to set up each version so that if I feel like, no, now I want to switch, I can go to this page and see what do I need to do to get going quickly. I need to gaffer the calendar, I need to check that the Someday Maybe lists are up to date and so on. And you know what would be a good idea? To migrate this, to rewrite this in the Someday Maybe section, because this is something I might want to refer to each time I change books. So I'll rewrite it more in a more structured way in all my Someday Maybe sections, and then I might just feel that elusive feeling. Planner Piece.